I've asked them to name them.
So I just tap on that?
Yeah.
All right.
And then
And then,
all of this will be,
yeah, okay, and then see how these claim vouchers are on? Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of Oak Harbor City Council meeting for the month. This is the 20th of February. If you care to participate, I would appreciate it if you would just at least stand in respect, but we are going to have a prayer from James Sanchez from Life Church, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
All right, let us pray. Lord, thank you for these men and women who have given a piece of their lives to serve this community. Grant them wisdom in making decisions that shape not only our public policy, but also decisions that affect the success of this city's future. Let there be one unifying voice which seeks to embetter our citizens and its guests. May you continue to protect the people in the city and all its civic leaders. Bless each and every person gathered here as the leaders commence in tonight's meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have one prime member missing from our ranks. Would someone like to, oh, two, excuse me. Thank you.
Wiesner and who am I missing over there?
Would someone,
I move to excuse Mayor Severance and Councilmember Jim Wiesner.
Second?
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So excused. Approval of the agenda? Councilman Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes. Tonight, we have a community presentation from the Oak Harbor Garry Oak Society from Laura Renninger, who is the current president.
Ladies and gentlemen, council members, as you know, Smith Park experienced a revival when the City Parks Department installed interpretive panels and a new name sign in December. Oak Harbor Garry Oak Society wanted to share photos taken in the park that capture how unique it is throughout all its seasons and how people in the community enjoy visiting the park, especially children. We compiled some of our very favorites for this short presentation. We can't talk about the park without talking about the tree species of which it is composed. In order to expand your knowledge, I have a few comments to alert you before we begin. In the first photo, early spring, budding leaves are shown along with the male Garry oak tree flower called a catkin, hanging down like a pendant. The second photo shows the female flower, which stands out as a small pink blossom. You may wonder why there is a photo featuring fungus growing on a Garry oak tree trunk. One of the special things about Garry oaks is that they support many types of diverse lichens and mosses, which are home for untold number of beneficial microscopic insects. These bugs, in turn, provide the foundation for a tasty bird food web. On any given day, Smith Park is a magnet for many bird species, and you will see a habitat cavity pictured in a mature Garry oak. Unfortunately, these busy birds are difficult to capture without the right camera. To compensate for this, we added bird song in the background. The other thing I would like to identify before we start is the Anise swallowtail butterfly, which you will see as the big yellow butterfly. This butterfly is usually seen in Smith Park May through June. You will see a photo of a Garry oak tree stump. Garry oaks are protected from being cut down by city law. However, Smith Park was long overdue for pruning. One of the trees was rotten, and the city hired a company to come in and clean out the dead wood. We included the stump to show you a vivid example of the heartwood of a Garry oak tree. This wood is highly prized by woodworkers for its density and beauty. Lastly, as you watch this presentation, Think about how Garry oak trees help to define the essence of the city of Oak Harbor. You will not see them like this in Langley or Coopville. In North Puget Sound, Garry oaks are only found on Whidbey and the San Juans. The Garry oak's continued presence in our community should be paramount. The old grandfather trees around us are falling. It is critical to long-term species survival that the city replant and carefully enhance our tree protection code to ensure Garry oaks will remain in Oak Harbor in the future. We hope you enjoy this presentation on Smith Park and our standout trees. Thank you.
We can try to get a question to her sometime. That's okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly into the microphone. Please limit comments to 3 minutes and ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. And I see lots of people in the audience, but one person so far that has signed up. Hal Hovey?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Munns and members of the City Council. My name is Hal Hovey. I'm a resident of Oak Harbor. I have 3 things I'd like to comment on tonight if I have enough time. The first is that I'd like to encourage all the Oak Harbor residents who are considering volunteering for something to volunteer for one of the openings on many of the city advisory boards. According to the Oak Harbor website today, we have 3 openings on the Oak Harbor City Planning Commission, 5 openings on the Salary Commission, and openings on some other boards as well. It'd be great if we were able to get more residents of Oak Harbor to step up and offer their profound experience and knowledge as members of these voluntary boards. It's a great way for citizens to participate in the governing process and help steer the decisions that are made by the city in the future. I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody who has any questions about what we do on the Planning Commission. The second item I'd like to address is the recent news about the wastewater treatment plant cost. I know the mayor and the city council are currently working to understand why there was an apparent miscommunication as to the increased cost. One of the things that I think needs to be looked at is whether the structure and chain of command of the Oak Harbor city government contributed to the communication failure. The city's growing. we increasingly are having big city expenses and big city problems. In addition to the growing costs with the wastewater treatment plant, the next 20 to 50 years in Oak Harbor will require massive investments in roads, sewer lines, water lines, parks, and the fire department, just to say a few, and that's just to keep up with the decaying, inadequate, and obsolete infrastructure. In addition, we're going to have continued increased regulation and unfunded mandates, as well as political pressure from state and county on how we conduct business. I would suggest that the City Council look at adopting a structure of government that makes the mayor a full-time position with the pay, stature, and clear lines of authority that go along with it. I don't know if the current structure of the city government led to the recent communications problem, but a clear chain of command is imperative to succeeding in the future. The next budget cycle is coming up soon. Now is the time for the council to make any considerations on whether they're going to make the mayor full-time or not. Finally, on the housing front, as of this afternoon, there are 18 detached single-family homes for sale for less than $300,000 north of Libby Road on Whidbey Island. 18. At the end of February last year, there were 44 for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Even if you didn't have a chance to sign up, you are quite welcome to come to the podium and express your opinion, or if you have a question for us, we would be delighted to have you come. Okay, I guess there's no takers tonight. All right. Consent agenda. Any rearrangement? Accept them as they're written. Right, they're accepted? Okay. And now we'll go into mayor comments, councilman comments, and city administrator. Making sure I announce it now so I don't flub that one up. As you will see, our walls are graced again with some lovely art. It is by Shirley Taff. She makes her home in Oak Harbor. She holds a certificate in communication arts. She enjoys all kinds of art, but she's happiest when she just has a pencil in her hand. There's never been a time when she hasn't been involved in some form of creativity. Her main concentration now is colored pencil with excursions into watercolor, life drawing, portraits, and mixed media all hold her charm. Animals hold a special allure, particularly as colored pencil subjects. For a time, she designed rugs and McAlbee's in Greenville, South Carolina. She also painted wall murals for Westminster Presbyterian Church, again in South Carolina. She is pleased to volunteer in art classes at the Oak Harbor High School and to schedule many artists whose work is displayed in council chambers at Oak Harbor City Hall. So if you have time after our meeting tonight to take, she's got some very, very lovely pieces, and as you can see, animals are her love. Other than that, I have no other comments. Council members? Councilman Larson.
I just wanted to talk about an event that I was privileged to attend on February 9th in the community. It was the Night to Shine, hosted at Life Church. There were over 315 volunteers from the community at this event. There were so many venues and so many opportunities, everything from parking. I mean, imagine just the parking for the over 500 people there, the parking lot staff, the kitchen help, those who helped with the makeup, the red carpet, the photography, the limo rides. I mean, it was just an extraordinary night for these kids and young adults. And it was truly what community service is supposed to look like. I was just overwhelmed and amazed at the hearts of the people who came together to make this night possible. And the kids who were able to participate in this were just so blessed. So I just wanted to say how proud I was to be a member of this community, and how awesome it was to watch everyone come together like that and put on such an incredible event.
I believe this was the second annual, if I'm not mistaken, so it is quite the event.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else this evening, please? All right, Mr. City Administrator, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have a couple different things tonight. First, I'm going to introduce Jared, who's our race director for the Whidbey Island Marathon, and he has a presentation to do for us tonight.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jared Loranger. I know we've met last year as well. First off, I want to thank Dr. Merriman and Nicole actually for all their support this year on the race. We are about 70 days away from the race, which takes place on April 22nd, 2018. Looks like I forgot to update that slide. But anyways, wanted to let you know on some of the cool things that are happening with the race and as we get closer to race day here. So once those slides get up there, we'll get started. But first things first, we just want to tell you guys a little bit about demographics and people that are showing up to actually race here on Whidbey Island in Oak Harbor. First slide here shows marathon demographics are very similar to years past. The one that I like to touch on the most is the farthest right circle there, the geographics there, showing basically where people come from. That green space there, 58%, which looks a little small, is actually people traveling from outside of 50 miles from Oak Harbor itself. So as you can see, the majority of people that come and participate in this race are from outside of Oak Harbor. We bring people to this island to fill hotels, to shop at the different areas, to eat the food, and obviously spend money on gas. One of the cool things actually we like to point out as much as we can is that over 3 countries are represented already in the race. Race participants, we have over 26 states represented, and as of right now, 225 different postal codes from all over the United States that come for this race. So it's not only an on-island event, it's actually something that's more than regional, it's nationwide. And we're excited for that, and every year those numbers seem to grow as we continue to make the marathon bigger and bigger. Registration numbers this year is the next thing I'd like to touch on. On the left there, you can see how many finishers we had in 2017 broke out. Obviously, it's a little small, so I'll read those for you. The marathon, we had 143 finishers. Half marathon, which is always our biggest event, had 850 finishers. 325 10K run walk finishers, 268 5K run walks. And then we had 106 kids participate as well in the Kids 1K. Year to date this year, we're actually over those marathon numbers of last year. We're at 501 half marathon participants, 147 10K, 64 5K, and 6 1Ks, which is normal. We usually see those kids sign up in the last week or so once the parents get signed up for the 5K and decide they want to bring the kids as well to participate. So as of yesterday, we were at 874 participants. Looking today before I got here, we were at 896 participants. So we're seeing about 15 to 25 participants actually sign up daily, which puts us on a good pace to hopefully surpass last year's numbers. 2017 looks like I missed that one as well. 2018, we're expecting about 2,100 participants in this year's race. So overall, in all of the events combined, we're looking at right around 2,100, and that's obviously families as well as people flying in from all over the area to take place in the event. Some of the event promotions that we are doing, we've got multiple prongs here. We're doing print collateral in Race Center Northwest and Outdoors Northwest, 2 different regional publications that touch on over 35 to 40,000 potential attendees from all over the region. Whidbey Weekly continues to be one of our very strong supporters. We do a weekly ad in every one of the weekly ads. Obviously, we have cover ads coming out as well, and we also are advertising in the chamber directory as well as the winter activities guide here on island. And actually the bottom right is a picture of one of the ads that we do there on the Whidbey Weekly. The top is actually a picture of the poster that's out right now, and if you guys have anywhere to hang those, I'd love it if Nicole could give you 1 or 2 of those as well. We actually are continuing our partnership with the Salish Sea Running Series, which is 4 different area marathons, including the Capital City Marathon down in Olympia, our race here on Oak Harbor, Discovery Marathon, which is out on the peninsula, as well as the Bellingham Bay Marathon. We are cross-promoting everybody's marathons to help boost those registration numbers as well across the the year there. And we're also doing a lot of electronic advertising, obviously, where we tap into our database, which is over 45,000 unique emails that we send out over 12 emails for the race itself, promoting everything from the new shirt design to race price increases and new things that come out, like a change in course or different stuff like that. And then obviously we are promoting on Facebook, which currently we have over 3,100 followers, and that number seems to grow daily, actually. So we're getting the word out as much as possible, and it looks like it's working to continue to increase those registration numbers. I mentioned the shirts, obviously. One big thing, people, if you're a runner, I hear a lot of people say, I only do running races for the medal and for the shirt. So we try and continue to make those look as neat as they can. This is a preview there of our medal that's going to be this year. It looks neat from there. The one cool thing about it is once you have it in your hand, the sails actually are spinners, so it actually spins on your medal, which is a little unique. And each medal will have the unique distance that you ran, 26.2, 13.1 for the half marathon, as well as 10K, 5K, and this year the kids will even get a medal. So everyone will have something to take home. On the right, there's a picture of the hoodie. We found a lot of people were really excited about the hoodie we did last year. It's a very unique thing. Most races give away some sort of tech shirt, and we went a little above that with a pretty cool lightweight hoodie. So this year we tried to go with a kind of tone-on-tone color with a gray scale there. That's something somebody would wear out in public, not just train in, because that's where we're going to see more of the promotion, is people wearing those out to the restaurants and in different spots. So those are some of the promotions. Other cool things we do is we take the bib, which you can see here on the wall here that says Oak Harbor. That's where we personalize it with your name or your nickname that you want to have on the bib. A lot of people, myself included, keep the bib as a keepsake. So we try and do a cool, unique thing for those participants as well. They also will get free participant photos, and then at the finish line, you'll also, again, like last year, we'll have a celebration with live music, a beer garden, food, and other fun stuff for the family to do. Next thing to touch on, volunteers. Obviously, I can't thank all the volunteers that come out and support this race enough. We have over 250 volunteers every year, and I'm here to say we can always use more help. Currently, two or three of the locations I'm looking to continue to fill is the water stations. It takes 5, 6, 7, 8 volunteers at every water station to staff that. We have 20 water stations on course, and we still have about 6 locations left that are throughout Island County. So we have a little on the Scenic Heights area, as well as some of North Whidbey that still needs covered, obviously. So if anybody has good ideas of where to find groups, I'm all ears. I also want to thank a few of the groups that have participated in the past and are continuing to show support. We have multiple churches involved that come out and participate. We have the Girl Scouts, different clubs such as Kiwanis and the Lions Club come out. Oak Harbor High School sends their Key Club out to participate as well. And a new one this year, thanks to Councilman Munn's husband, actually, is the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. He's going to staff one of the water stations, and I think even bring out his pirate ship, from what I understand. So. And we've put him as the last water station right on the boardwalk trail there in Windjammer Park. So he's excited, I'm excited, and obviously we have about 6 more stations to fill. We usually get good support from ROTCs and the Navy or the military as well to come out and help with course monitor locations and finish line locations. And I'm actually looking at a few of you that were at the finish line with me last year and did some of the announcing. So thank you, and hopefully we see you again here this year on April 22nd. One more slide here is just how to participate or volunteer. The keynotes on this, if you want to register and participate in the race, it's runwhidbey.com. You can go there and register. Prices increase here on March 2nd, so you've got about 10 more days here to get registered before prices increase again. And obviously, my big push is to continue to recruit those volunteers. So same thing, runwhidbey.com. There's a sign-up link for individuals. I'm always looking for groups because they're a great resource to talk to one captain. They can cover a lot of ground with a group to come out. So if people have group suggestions, I'm always all ears. And Run Whidbey actually has a comment section as well that the emails go directly to me, that if there are groups out there, I'm all ears. So I think that's my presentation. I'm willing to stay here and answer questions as well if you guys have some. But thank you in advance for your support.
Council, anybody have any questions? Not at this time.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Going through our agenda, looks like we have Marina grant applications. Oh, I did it again. Go ahead and finish. Continue, City
Okay.
Administrator Dr. Meredith. All right,
Thank you
just
very
wanna
much.
Get
That's all
going
right.
here.
We have just a couple things left here. One is just for those that may be watching our next council meetings, we do have a scheduled workshop for the 28th. That is next week at 2 o'clock. And then March 6th will be our next regular full council meeting, and that's here at City Hall at 6 o'clock. For tonight, there were a couple things I wanted to touch on. One is on our February 15th workshop last week, we met to talk about a couple of things. One of those was the budget questions regarding the clean water facility. And City Council gave us a list of questions and things they would like us to research and get back to you all on as far as budget information and different aspects of the project. Well, since that meeting, I just wanted to let everyone know, staff has been working diligently to get that information put together that you requested. It was our goal to see how much of that we could crank out between Thursday and today to see if we can do it. But as we met at noon today, just to look over what we had a lot of information, a lot of it already exists, but the main thing we felt is that we were, I thought Tim whistled at me for a minute. But the main thing that we were concerned about is rushing too quickly and getting information and not having it vetted well and prepared well. So based on our phone calls and things to you today, we're going to look at trying to schedule time on the 28th during our workshop to have that conversation. I wanted to mention this to you because I just want to reaffirm to you our commitment to get you information as quickly as we can. We want to be responsive and do that, but at the very same time, we want to have a complete and accurate report for you. So we appreciate council's patience and everything to work with us. We still have to make sure that time works for everyone, as well as Mayor Severance and how that would interplay as well. There's a memo at each of your stations there I put together, and what it has is the list of questions that I went back over and reviewed the video and believe I have all the questions there. But if we miss something, or if you have additional questions of things you would like to know, please let me know right away. And we'll try to incorporate that into the report we give you on the 28th. One of the other things that we'll be doing is Brett usually has come up and give us an update each council meeting on the production side of the plant. We talk about concrete and schedule and those things like that. We all got together and brainstormed what would be a more meaningful presentation based on everything that we're working with. And so we'll be revamping that. So we'll probably have Brett working on the production side, talking about what we call the sticks and bricks of the project. And then at the same time, we'll have finance come up, probably most likely Patricia or someone coming up to talk about the money side of that. And I think what that will do, give us a little clear delineation of those. And like we said before, we'll opt to overproduce information for you and see if that is more helpful and keeps us moving forward. So for tonight, Brett will go ahead and give his report. It'll be under the same format, but stay tuned for coming changes on that in future meetings.
Good evening. It's our time for our Clean Water Facility project update. A while back, we were talking about delays in the project, and one of our concerns in the fall was the switchgear, where the good news, it showed up today, or actually yesterday, and so that's the switchgear itself. This is like a main disconnect going into your house, but it's also metering, all that type of stuff. So that was actually put in place. This is pretty interesting equipment because it's very long lead item, you have to get it, and it's our interface with PSE. So we get this all installed, then PSE comes in and connects to it. So we handle wires here, but the wires are about an inch in diameter, very large and very difficult to move. So this is actually a very physical piece of equipment, but it's also highly technical in terms of how it handles. But the good news is on its way, and PSE is scheduled to start pulling wires in and setting transformers in the next couple of weeks. Reese?
Excuse me, Brett. I heard you say two things.
Uh-huh.
We have it, and it's on its way. Which one is it?
It's here.
Okay.
But what it's on its way is PSC, but we have to get them installed and hooked up first.
Okay, thank you.
Windjammer Park, we are out for bid packages on that. We are opening bids on March 1st. We're sending out the last addendums this week, so more news to come with that. We are continuing working on our SCADA software development. That's becoming pretty intensive for us because we have to coordinate all that software with all the equipment that's showing up. So we're doing factory acceptance testing, which we actually go out to the panels. The engineers do, not city staff, so we have a couple visits and check these things out. We are developing, obtaining our development permits for the project. Our SEPA comment period closes on the 22nd, so we should hopefully move forward from that. Construction-wise, we're still kind of lagging, a little bit of final concrete coming in. We're over 12,000 yards right now. We're still ahead of schedule on it and below our labor estimates. We are continuing to backfill around structures. That's ongoing as we move along. Our pile is getting smaller. Like I said earlier, the switchgear has arrived. That was a big date for us. GMPs number 9, number 11 are the mechanical, electrical. Number 11, which is mostly the architectural type features of the structures, doors, windows, bricks, all that kind of stuff. Most of our workers here, so the concrete labor is starting to demobilize, but the other labor in terms of those other specialties are getting a lot busier. Last week we were 105 workers on site, but I think this week we're actually down to 100, and that number is probably declining throughout the project now, but it'll still be over 100 for next month or two. The wood framing is self-perform is moving ahead. That's been a success story for us. Those guys have really done a nice job with it, and it's been really high quality work. So we were commenting that at our construction meeting. Masonry is continuing to go on. Most of the CMU is now up, so we're starting mostly the veneer bricking. So that's going on, keeping us very busy. The roofing, the final roof is going on the Headworks building, and it should be done in a couple of weeks. We have processed our $29 million loan with SRF, so that's a big relief on our minds, and we are pursuing Windjammer Park funding opportunities. Upcoming major council updates and decision points, as Dr. Merriman said earlier, we are looking to do a project budget and future activities discussion at the February 28th workshop. Hopefully that's targeted, and hopefully we can make that happen. We are considering an amendment to our PSC service contract on March 6th. I'm getting the final documents from PSC on that right now. Schedule-wise, this is the schedule that you've seen historically. We're still very much on schedule after all this time. You did request some highlights of the short-term schedule, what we're doing here. So I kind of put down some major milestones that we're looking at right now. April 2018, we're completing the structural construction, which is mostly walls, roofs. That'll be complete. We'll still have some stuff like installing windows and doors going on, but we'll have these buildings dried in, so that's a big milestone. July 2018, that's when we're going to have the liquid process, mechanical, electrical complete, and we're going to start clean water testing. August, the solids process will be complete too. Reason they're going sort of bang bang. We have to get the liquid side started, so we do the clean water testing and get the biological process in. So actually the solids will be up and ready to go long before we're ready to actually put solids to it. So that's kind of a staggered startup. Right now we're looking at early September to start treating sewage. Hopefully we can pull that ahead. Depends on how well the clean water testing goes. And November 2018, we are going to have the sewage and the solid startup activities complete. So it'll be an operational plan at that point. From May to December, we're going to be doing site improvements to support this. We have to get streets and sidewalks and all that kind of stuff in also to make this happen. So that's in GMP 13. So those will be ongoing from May to December 2018. course, the park improvements that we select moving ahead will take place in that. We're hoping to have most of the park improvements done in December, but we may have some activities that may have to come back in the spring to do just because of weather-related issues. Public outreach, if you want to find more about our project, you can reach us at oakharborcleanwater.org. You can call our work phone number at 914-7000 or our work extensions. You can email us at treatmentplan@oakharbor.org. And we do have community drop-ins at on next Wednesday, March 12th, on a Monday afternoon. And we are taking appointments if people want to make a visit. Also, I was reminded that on our normal status report, there were some numbers wrong in one of the tables. Those have been straightened out. The numbers now are accurate. Questions?
Questions from the council, please. Councilman Wassinger.
Have our total cost estimates that were last published to the public, the 141 million, have those changed?
No, and I think that's a discussion we have to have in what those numbers are.
Councilman Heiss?
Thank you. Could you go back to the timeline slide, please?
Make that happen.
Sorry,
Or that one there? Yeah.
that one. November 2018, solid sewage and solid startup complete. So does that mean this facility is going to be online in November?
We will start treating sewage in that time. These startups take time. We have to grow the bugs and do that,
Right.
so it's not just drive it off a lot. So there's a couple of intermediate steps before we can't do the solids till we actually have biosolids to dry. So,
Right. Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's
so
end
basically
of February. November is not that far away.
November's
and
not that far away.
I mean, it's still a shell of a structure.
There's
or
a lot
appears to
happening.
be.
There's a lot happening inside of
Is
it,
there?
and it's very busy, and we have to keep our team concentrated on the goal line. But
That's ambitious.
exciting.
I like it. And you also, I mean, at the same time this is happening May to December, is the same time we're trying to finalize this and get it online, the park improvements are going to be taking place.
Yes.
And you mentioned public outreach in terms of the website. What plans do we have to do public outreach during those months? Because that's going to be complete chaos at the park in the spring and the summer between the plant and the park being worked on. Do we have any public outreach?
Yes, we are planning to
Plans.
do more public outreach. You know, we've been trying to do that as we move along.
Mm-hmm.
I think our biggest question right now is what activities are available at the park.
Yeah.
But also we need to make we've been doing mailers and having public meetings. So we plan on doing a mailer when we have a better idea of what we're actually doing. But I do feel that communication on this is going to be very critical.
Yeah, the activity calendar,
Yeah.
parking
Yeah.
suggestions. I mean, yeah, what facilities will be available and open and not for planning purposes. So I think staff has done a great job of doing community outreach thus far. So I'm sure you have a plan in place. I look forward to seeing
We've
it.
had several meetings on it, and it's something we're pretty, in terms of the project team, very active on. And we've also been trying to define the impacts a little better so we can give people good ideas of what's going on.
Right. Well, it's going to be a busy year. I'm looking forward to it.
Councilman Nomberg.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, Brett, you have that upcoming schedule highlights up there, and that's probably derived from a flow chart. Is that correct?
Oak Harbor 39, which is our latest critical path schedule.
Okay, so you have critical paths to get to each one of those things. And those are primarily construction related. Where is the schedule that has the administrative process for the project closeout? Well, I know we have permit requirements, we have legal requirements, we have bonding and funding requirements. There's a whole litany of administrative that have to run parallel with that. Where is that schedule?
That schedule has not been done. Actually, Chris and I were talking about it because she was saying, she was thinking, well, I'll be off the project in September, and I go, that's when the work really starts. So I would say right now we're talking a year to 18 months to close the project out, just dealing with retainages, dealing with warranty issues. These things take a little time to do that.
So when will we have a schedule that maps that
I
out?
will pull something together on that, because we've always been focused on the construction, and now we're starting to think about what happens afterwards.
Yeah, I think for the benefit of the council and probably everybody involved, it would be nice to have even I don't want to go into the flow chart thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys are going to work that logic out on that. But at least it would give us a bar chart schedule similar to what you have for construction, help us understand. And also, I would believe that it would help each of you to understand so that we don't have 5 people pointing fingers at each other why we're not meeting those critical points.
Yeah.
Okay? When will we have that?
I will have that for the next meeting,
The workshop or the council meeting?
the council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I could probably talk about it at the council meeting, but it may take a little more time to make sure we got all the steps in there, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? I have a couple. The water, you have to use, obviously, potable water to flush through. Has that been figured into the cost, or do we kind of have an idea how much you're going to need to flush through the system, or it depends on if you find anything that's not working quite?
What we do is, and that is a cost we recognize in sort of administrative costs. Like when we tested the tanks down here, we put 1.5 million gallons in there. That was a $11,000 water bill. What we do is we fill the tanks up, and then we recirculate them. So that's kind of as we play games with it, we have some pumping and we pump around, and so we have some temporary pumping in there. And so technically we do clean water tests, and actually if you get into the clean water test, because of that requirement, we kind of move from section to section so we can recirculate the water.
Okay, and then you were mentioning the biosolids drying.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a plan on how we're gonna bag it or store it or sell it, or?
We are working on a solids management plan right now.
Okay.
And part of that is, I think, from the project team's point of view, we need to get some marketing going on that right now. We have to do the regulatory requirements, which is the solids management plan. Eventually, we want to market that as a product that will reduce our cost. And so that's one activity that we're doing on the operational side.
Okay. It just sounded interesting. It won't be quite as exciting as selling, what do they call it, a zoo poop? But, you never know.
And, in our rate schedule, we kind of anticipate, we have to develop that market. So, people aren't going to be driving up the day we start up. It's
Right.
going to take a period of months or years to actually, but, most times when we have this material available, once it becomes in the marketplace, it becomes attractive.
Okay. And I believe that's all the questions that I have. Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, next on the agenda. Now the Marina Grant application of Island Local Integrating Organization. And we have our harbor master with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about 3 grants from the Island Local Integrating Organization. But before I get too far into it, I'd like to acknowledge that Lori Clark is here with us, and she's been very instrumental in helping me with these. And if there's any questions asked that I can't answer, she's going to help. She's with the Island County DNR, and she's one of the managers there. We also have Dawn Spilsbury Pucci, and she's the lead entity coordinator for the Salmon Recovery Program. So the ILIO grants, this is basically a reauthorization. We applied for these back in 2016. Since that time, they've expired. So now we're going back through the process to reapply for these for the 2018-2020 cycle. The ILIO receives state and federal funding to fund approved projects, and typically they don't require a match. So the potential funding source for this time around for the 2018-2020 cycle is the Salmon Recovery Fund. And if approved again, they'll pay for 100% of the project costs. So the 3 projects we're looking at, one is a water shading reduction project, one is a beach soft armoring project, and another is a stormwater improvement project. All of these projects have two functions. They help the salmon recovery and improve resilience for the Island County watershed, and they also help the marina and upgrade it as well. Here's a map that shows where these projects are going to be. The first red circle at the top is E-Dock. We'd remove about half of the covered E-Dock moorage up there, and that's the area in dark. The big circle below that is D-Dock, and the plan there is to remove the covered moorage, all of the covered moorage, and the fingers on the east side. And the east side is the side closest to the bottom of the slide. To the left, you can see the boat ramp. And then to the right, the biggest circle shows where the stormwater runoff is and where the beach is. So the first project, and these aren't in any specific order, the water shading reduction project, the plan is to remove all of the D-Dock covered moorage, all of the fingers from the east side. So we'll have one big side tie area of approximately 550 feet long. This is going to reduce the shading on the water, which is better for the environment. It's also going to make these slips on the west side of D-Dock multi-dimensional. Instead of having a roof for a certain height boat, now we can put sailboats in there and that sort of thing. On the side tie side, we anticipate that we'd be able to do boats up to the 60, 70-foot range, which is the up-and-coming market. D-Dock is an interesting dock. At one time, it was fully covered from the walkway all the way to the end. Then in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, they reduced the covered moorage down to about 28 slips. Since that time, the 28-foot category has become trailerable, and it's actually our lowest vacancy or our highest vacancy area in the whole marina. We currently have 9 boats in that covered moorage, and that's a record since I've been there. Typically, we see 4, 5, or 6 boats. So by removing that roof, we're actually going to improve our occupancy rate, which helps with the revenue rate in the long run. So we'll go from having boats or slips that could generate revenue in the $275 range with very few boats to a full side tie area where we're going to generate revenue from boats in the 60-foot range that are in the $500, $600 range per month. So we're going to reduce the moorage, but we're actually going to increase the revenue. Coupled with that, removing the D-Dock roof, we're also going to look at removing half of the E-Dock roof. E-Dock is a 32-foot category. E-Dock is another one that we struggle with as far as keeping full for about 9 months out of the year. We currently have about 16 boats in there. There's 32 covered slips. So we'd like to remove half of that. We have a waiting list for the 32-foot open slips right now, and it's about 20 boats. So we feel that we could fill that relatively quickly. Again, we're reducing the covered moorage, but we're going to increase the number of boats in the marina, which will increase the revenue. Another project we're looking at is a beach soft armoring project. We'd like to remove about 1,900 feet of riprap and armoring and install soft armoring. Soft armoring is what you see up at Coronet Bay. They did a fantastic job up there, and you actually see people out there walking on it and enjoying it. It's a sand mix with plants and root masses, and this will be good because it's going to aid with the salmon restoration. The last project is a stormwater improvement project. We'd like to, along the edge of the parking lot, the stormwater runs off. In that tall picture, you can see the edge of the parking lot, and then you can see the ditch that the stormwater literally just runs into when it rains. The stormwater then goes through that graded metal cover and right into the bay. We do put some oil absorbent pads in there, but it literally, there's not much filtration. So what we'd like to do is install some natural filtration, something like a bioswale. This will reduce some of the pollutants that go into the bay directly, and it'll give it a more natural appearance than this cement drainage ditch. As part of that project, we took a look at the boat ramp, and our boat ramp is very gradual. It's about 6 to 8% of a slope. The standard is 12 to 15%. What we commonly see are vehicles when they're launching their boats, they submerge the back end of the truck or the car, or whatever they're using, and that puts asbestos, copper, and fuels, oils, gas, those sorts of things into the bay. by increasing the slope or reducing the amount that a car has to be submerged to launch a boat, and we're also increasing the usability of the ramp. Our current ramp is not usable at some of the low tides, and unfortunately the low tides happen in the summer when people really want to use it. So the recommended action is to authorize or reauthorize staff to submit applications for the 3 grants to the Island Local Integrating Organization for these marina projects.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? I'll open it up for comment from Mr. Sublett. All right, I will open up for council. Council, any questions about any of these grants or what they're trying to do? Councilman Almberg.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, if we approve this tonight, it's really approving the application. We're not approving any expenditure from grants because we don't have a grant in our hand, right?
Yes, that's
So we
correct.
get another bite at the apple.
Yes.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is questions that I have, and I'll make it really quickly here. In our packet, it identified a grant amount of $1,200,000 and one for $800,000. Is that a combined grant, or are they totally separate? And how are they parceled out? Do they go to regional applicants, or are that's our grant application where we may get that money?
It's 3 separate applications for a grant. So those dollar amounts are for each individual piece. We had the 3 projects and it showed the dollar amount for each one of those projects. As far as how it's distributed out, I'm going to ask Lori to come up and talk to you about that.
Hi. So they'll
Hi,
be.
Lori. Long time no talk, huh?
I know, right? They're near-term actions, and they will each be rated individually. So each NTA near-term action, there are 3 different projects, and there are 3 different types of money, and they're also a whole another language I don't want to have to get into right now, but it's their strategic initiatives. So we will be ranking these projects against other projects in the region, and so we have about 30 here locally, and then there's 800 projects throughout Puget Sound. So we get local allocation. There's also regional allocation. So these projects will individually be competing. So you may get just one funded, and then you may possibly get all 3 funded. The slide that he showed about salmon recovery funding money, that's a local allocation, and Dawn is here. She's lead entity coordinator, and it's going to be $100,000. It's going to look at how you might the feasibility of all 3 of the projects, and how you might either combine them or phase them out, and how you make the best use of the funding and also the phasing of the restoration, if it makes sense to do it all at once or to different pieces and segments. So that feasibility study, if it gets funded this year, will help us inform how to move forward with other near-term actions. And these will actually stay in the queue until 2022. So if the council approves to put these forward, they'll stay on the action agenda, and they'll go up for funding each time without having to reapply. So it's an initial work that Chris has already done to do the work for the application, and then you'll just it'll keep getting reevaluated each time until it's funded, hopefully.
Okay, are these grants, do they have matching?
Some
Matching
do and
grants?
some do not. The $100,000 that's coming up does not. Almost the Department of Ecology does not. Fish and Wildlife, Shellfish, no, these do
So
not.
I'm not very enthusiastic about funding just a feasibility, and then there's no money for the follow-up. So we'll get another crack at this.
So it's
if we're
completely
granted-
different. The Salmon Recovery Funding Board, the feasibility portion is just completely different. What we did was we looked at these projects were 3 different large projects, and right now they're not scoped out enough to know if they could be done at the same time or if they need to be done different times, especially the stormwater piece with the soft shore piece, because they're all both in the same area. The dock is probably separate, I would imagine, but if you have construction equipment that comes down to do restoration, it's usually cost effective to have them do all the pieces at once. So the $100,000 wouldn't be taken out of the other funding pots. It wouldn't change those 3 projects. It would be kind of another piece just to look at what makes most sense for the other 3 projects.
Okay, then the soft armoring, is that going to be similar to what we did, the restoration during the dredging about, I think, 3.5 years ago? There was, we had amended soils and plant material and things, put along the shoreline in there? Is that part of what you're calling?
I'd
Soft
imagine
armoring?
not, because if it's right in front of the marina, you don't have any soft armoring. Soft armoring, Alla Spit, have you been there?
Pardon?
Alla Spit, have you seen
Yeah,
Alla?
yeah,
That's
yes,
soft armoring.
okay.
So it's driftwood, plants placed. You can anchor the driftwood so that it doesn't move, but you all have very low wave action there in the marina area, so you probably would need a drift or anchor near the driftwood.
Okay, thank you very much. I just
You're
have
welcome.
one more question for Mr. Sublett. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
All right. What is the status of our DNR lease?
Status of the DNR lease is it's going to expire this summer. And I know that the mayor and a committee of people have been working with DNR to get something set up prior to then. As far as where we're at, ideally, I'm not 100% sure, but I know the mayor is fully aware of what's going on since he's leading that committee.
All right, then the other thing, and then I'll give it up to council members here. It's counterintuitive to me that we're going to actually increase revenues when we remove the roof off of those slips.
Mhm.
Because the covered slips generate more funds. Are those the slips that have the high vacancy because of the length of the slips, or the ones for the boat? Is that what the problem is?
I think that's the case on D-Dock, where we have a extremely high vacancy rate for 9 or 10 months out of the year. The way D-Dock works is in the summer, during the crab season and the boating season, we actually overflow smaller boats and sometimes even bigger boats into D-Dock. They don't necessarily want covered moorage, but that's all that's available. Right now, like I said, there's only 9 boats in that whole covered area out of 28 slips, so we're generating very little revenue for 9 or 10 months out of the year. This way, we're going to put bigger boats in there, and those bigger boats will be there year-round, and the average rent, or the monthly rent for those boats, is much more, 3 times as much almost in some cases, than the smaller boats.
Did you work out a model that shows the cash flow on what types of boats? I mean, you're speculating on the length of the boats going in there.
Mhm.
You just said that it will generate more income. How did you arrive at that? Do you have a model for that?
I don't have a model, but as I look at the numbers, the occupancy rates, and the amount of revenue that we generate from D-Dock, and then I compare what the possibilities might be, because D-Dock is still going to be full on the uncovered side, it's clear to me that it's going to be way more revenue. But I could generate a model if you'd like to see that.
This council member would like to see how you got
Sure.
to the numbers,
Sure, no
rather than
problem.
just a statement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Councilman Larson.
Quick ones. You said that for the open bays, they're not covered. You have a waiting list currently for those?
That's correct. On the E-Dock 32-foot open slips, we do have a waiting list, yes.
Okay. And then the other question was real quick on each of these 3 projects, one on $250,000, $800,000, $1.2 million. Are those the figures that we used in 2016? Have they been updated? It's under cost estimate. So have we updated that cost estimate?
No, those are the same figures we used previously. We got those figures off the internet. We compared what we want to do to projects that have been completed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilman Heisman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This might be a question for Lori or Don. The funding amounts, would those, if we were to receive the funding, would we receive that amount, or is partial funding an option? I'm seeing some, I wouldn't want to ask for 1.2 million and get 500,000 and not be able to afford to do anything with it, if that makes sense.
Right. Actually, that happens a lot, because in the developmental phase, you often just project numbers. And then as you start to realize you're going to get funded, you get a more detailed budget. And so you get a scope of work going with the state agency, whoever's funding you. And then you can refine those numbers. You don't have to accept the entire amount. Is that your question?
Sort of. What I'm concerned about is, well, not really concerned, but being awarded a grant and getting all excited about a project, but not getting enough to actually complete the project. You know, I don't know if it's like LTAC, you either fund it all or none, if we get the full amount or partial. And so that's a concern. But then if we do get partial funding, like you said, in the planning stages, would already be, and this is speculation on your part, but would already having been awarded those funds maybe increase our chances of getting additional funds?
They're
Or is it
different.
doled out?
They're different grant funds. The $100,000 feasibility study, it would definitely get attention on this project as far as the potential for it to be beneficial to salmon recovery habitat. But as far as, so the reason we parse them into 3 different projects instead of one large marina project is because of what you're saying. What you're calling partial funding, to me, is just funding a piece of the 3 different pieces.
Correct.
But there wouldn't be, say if one of them was $800,000, then the state wouldn't come and say, oh, we're going to give you $400,000. If they're committing to pay for that project as it's proposed, they're committing $800,000. As you start to work out the details, you can say, oh, it's actually $900,000. And you work through that, and they expect that as the budgets. And as the years pass on, 4 years can pass, and construction costs can go up in that time, and you have the opportunity to revise your budget. But that's why we parse it into 3 different pieces, and that's why we're also doing the feasibility, because we do want to highlight how it may make a lot of sense to combine. Are you okay, Nikki? Okay. It may make sense, fiscal sense, to combine the pieces and maybe group 2 of those near-term actions together. Like I said, I really feel like the stormwater one shouldn't be done without this offshore project, because they're going to be done in the same area, and you're disturbing that area anyway. You're closing down the traffic or the parking lot. So that's what the feasibility study is going to tell us. But I don't think it would necessarily make it more likely that you'd get funded for the other ones, or it definitely wouldn't hinder you from being eligible for those other funds, because although we work really closely together, Don and I, there are different funding sources, so be fine.
Okay, I know that this represents years of work on your part, so I'm crossing my fingers. So
Okay.
thanks.
Mr. Councilman Servadius.
Thank you. So just listening to that, is there any reason we would not amend those applications to factor in some inflation and some other costs there if we're working with 2016 numbers?
No, I don't think there's any reason that we should or shouldn't do that. This, again, is just to move forward to file for it. It's not the actual grant at this point.
Right, but listening to what Ms. Clark just said, if they decide to fund the project, they will fund it in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd much rather apply for 900 rather than 800. I don't know how that would change the odds of the application being successful. But if we're working with 2016 numbers, and I understand we're just applying for the grant,
Right.
why wouldn't we add some dollars in here?
All right.
Since we just went through a rather large project and experienced what the cost of construction can do to a project.
Excellent question, Mr. Servadius. I think maybe 2 schools of thought, but we would also look to Ms. Clark for her guidance. One is, I think that the initial estimates were sufficiently conservative, which is typically how we would do things, because we're not at a place where we're obviously doing a takeoff off of a set of plans or anything like that. So those are probably fairly generous numbers. The second point, more of a detailed point, which was we think that what we were asked to do is to resubmit the same projects that we had previously submitted. And so while I don't think that we made a conscious choice to say, okay, we're going to leave the numbers exactly the way they are, probably in the back of our mind, since we were asked to submit the same projects, we submitted the same projects. But if Ms. Clark thought that we should update those numbers, then we would certainly do those, maybe just apply an inflation factor to them. I think the real key for the council is that if I may, is that we've previously pursued these projects with your approval. We're seeking your reauthorization to submit them again so that we can keep them alive, or the hope of getting them funded alive. There are a number of details that would obviously have to be worked out should we be successful in receiving the grant. So council's prerogative, if you want us to increase those numbers, we'd be happy to do that, or we can stay where we are.
So I support this, especially if you think they're non-matching grants. I'd rather have us get them than someone else. But when you, I don't know if you use the word sufficiently conservative in the initial go-round. I have to trust you that they are sufficiently conservative so that if we acquire these grants and then need to come up with another 200,000 to do any one of these projects, I'll look back and remember the words that we were sufficiently conservative when we made this application. So I'll let you guys work that out, but my suggestion would be to maybe factor in a little bit of inflation there. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council? Chair will entertain a motion. Oh, you have a question?
No, I was
Sorry.
going to make a motion if you didn't have a question.
I was just going to make a motion.
Rock, paper, scissors? Councilman Heisman, a motion?
I move to authorize staff to submit applications for 3 grants to the Island Local Integrating Organization for Marina projects.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application grants to the Island Local Integrating Organization. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passed unanimously. And I believe we are done for the evening.
Thank you.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harbor Master. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
right, we are adjourned.